What's up, Internet? This is Chyld, and I'm going to show you today how to install the latest version of Node and Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to show you how to install this on a Mac. The same procedure should apply as well for Linux. Slightly different than Windows, but I'm not going to show Windows. This is basically Mac or basically Linux. I have up two websites. This is the Node website and the Visual Studio Code, the VS Code website here. So VS Code is a good editor for editing really any kind of code, and then Node, of course, is the runtime for JavaScript. So I'm going to show, like I said, how to install both these things on your Mac. Like I said, the same procedures would apply for Linux as well. So let's get started. So first of all, you go to Node.js/org slash your language is EN because it's English, but go to Node.js.org. I like to, now normally if you just click on this button right here, 750, that's the current version as of right now, mid-February 2017. This is not a bad way to install Node, but I like to install it a little bit more specifically. Like I want to know like where it's going, and so if I want to upgrade it, I just like being more in charge of it, of the install process. But the package, this PKG is another way, a simpler way of installing it. What I'd like to do is go to other downloads, and if you're on Linux, there's ARM versions here, and there's Linux binaries here. This is the Mac. Like I said, the simple way, of course, is the installer, but I like to have a little bit more control over what's happening. So I'm gonna click on the 64-bit MacOS binary, this one right here. So that's gonna download the Node binary, and then if I go to VS Code here, it automatically detects my system as a Mac. Now, if you're using Linux or Windows, it would detect that as well too. I just click and download this, and then it runs and is downloading. Now, while this thing is downloading, let me go ahead and show you how to install Node first. So, if I go to my Finder and so here's my VS Code, and here's Node. I guess I'll just do the VS Code first since it's the easiest. You just double click on it, it obviously unzips it, and then you just take this VS Code icon and you just drag it into your applications. So find your applications folder. Replace. I actually have it already. So just drag it in there, and once you have it in there, it'll actually show up as Visual Studio Code. So that's installed. Now we'll do like a slight setup here in a second, but that's basically the install for it. And then for the Node version, I'm gonna show you some command line stuff. So I'm going to open up my terminal. Now I'm using Hyper. I may later on show you how to install Hyper. It's also an Electron-based, or you could think of it as a Node-based app as well too. But I may show this in a later video. But Hyper is a good terminal to use. Also, iTerm is good as well. Let's see here. So here we are. Here's my terminal, and what I want to do is I want to go to my downloads folder, and I have, as you can see, here's VS Code, which I already installed, and then here's Node. Now, of course, I could have just double clicked on this thing to like unzip it or ungzip it, but I'm just going to use tar dash. Everyone should have tar installed -xvf. And then Node. So tar-xvf Node, and then type in your file name, hit enter, and basically what's happening is it's just extracting these files. So if we look at it now, here's the original download, here's the original download here. I don't need the VS Code one, so I can just delete it. And then I can also delete the Node one as well too, .tar. Yeah. So the only thing I have left is just this folder. Okay, this is full, and we're gonna move this folder to another location. So if you were at your terminal and you wanted to see if Node was running or not, you can type in Node like that, and it says command not found Node npm. If you tried npm, it says not command not found. So that's letting you know that the system can't find Node, even though I actually have a folder right here that has Node in it. It can't find it. So what we need to do is we need to put this thing in a place where it can be found. So I'm going to cd to /user/local like that. So /user/local is a good location to put in. So user, of course, is a user. Local is like your own local copies of programs. So this is a good place to put this node folder in. So I'm going to basically move, and I'm going to go tilde, that means to my home directory, and then into my downloads directory. There's Node. So I'm going to move my Node folder to right here. I'm just going to rename it to Node. Now when I do that, it's not letting me do it because this folder has permissions on it. So what I can do instead is say sudo, and that will allow me to run this as super user. So that'll move the folder from my downloads folder into /user local, and it'll rename it as well too. So it basically does a move and a rename, and so now the folder is called Node. And you can cd into Node, and you can see cd into bin, and there's your programs. There's Node, and then there's npm. Those are the actual binaries when you run it. So if you were to say /, well, if you were to just say Node like this, it's still not going to find it. But if you say /node, of course, we're at the Node prompt now, so obviously it found it. But it found it because you told it where to look. So there's that. We need to fix one more thing before I move on. Now, it's important that this Node folder that you just installed has your permissions in it. So make sure it doesn't say root here. It doesn't. It has my name in it. So whatever your username is on your folder, your username is on your system should be the same username here. If this username right here says root, then anytime you install a global node module, like if you said npm install Mocha, for example, -g, that would be a global node module install. You couldn't install it because they install global node modules into this folder, but if this thing were to say root, you would have permission problems. You would have to type in sudo. So every time you want to install a global node module, you'd have to say sudo, sudo, sudo. That, of course, gets old, and you can run into permission problems. And anyway, I've seen a lot of heartache and misery over that. So my best suggestion is don't call this thing root, just use your name. Therefore, when you install global node modules, they go in nice and easy without having to elevate any permissions. So that's one thing to be aware of. Okay, so how come if I type in Node, it can't? That I'm in Z shell and it automatically CD'd me into it. But if I type in Node, it doesn't know how to run this program. So in order to run it, there's a special folder here called bin. So I can say cd into bin like this. And these files, their colors look a little bit different. I'm going to make this thing full size. The reason these files are colored like this is because these aren't normal files. These are links. They're symbolic links to think of them as pointers. They're files that they just point to the real file somewhere else on disk. So for example, get here isn't real. It actually just points to a file get that's underneath get bin get. So these are just symbolic links that point to the actual file. So any file that's in this folder, user local bin will automatically get picked up by the system in the path, and so you can just find it. So I have two files I need. I need Node and npm, and I need that, and I want those to both show up in here. So when I type in Node, the system will automatically look in this folder, local bin, user local bin. It'll see it, and then it'll run it. So I need to create those files. So how do I create those symbolic links? Well, you say ln-s. Now I need to find those files. So they're under /user/local node bin node. So that's the name of the file. And then now you need to tell it what the symbolic link is called. Now this could be called dog or cat or whatever you want it, whatever you want to call it. But because people are going to be actually typing in the word node, you want to type in node like that. Now what that did is if you look right, if you look right here, that wasn't right here. Down here you can see it added in a symbolic link node, and it points to here. So that looks pretty good. I want to do the same thing for npm, so it can find both npm. And now here is node at the bottom, and pull this up a little bit. Here's node and npm. So theoretically the system can find it. So to prove this, if I just cd back to my home directory, I'm in my home directory now. If I just type in node, look, it works. See, I didn't have to tell it where to go or anything, because the system automatically looks in user local bin and it found it. Also, npm works. I can install a global node module without any permission problems, like if I said npm install mocha-g. See, no problems. It went in, installed really quickly. There were no permission problems. So that's, so that looks like that works. So that's Node. Node is now installed. Now if you ever want to upgrade your version of Node, all you have to do is just replace, you go cd/user local node, and you would just basically just replace all these files with, so let's say they came out with 7.6 or 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. You could just delete this directory and then just download the new files and copy them over, and then boom, you have the latest version of Node, no problem. So there's that. Now what about Visual Studio Code? Well, if I go to applications and then Visual Studio Code, of course I can just double click on it. That's one way of doing it. Also you can use Finder, right? You can do command space and type in Visual Studio Code. That's how I actually do it. And then you can open up code. Now you're going to want to open up code from the command line by typing in code like this. How you get that is, once you have Visual Studio Code and it's up, you need to hit Command-Shift-P like that. Let me do that again. Command-Shift-P, and once you do, you'll get this little prompt here. And if you type in, shell, S-H-E-L-L like this, it will tell you two things. It says shell command install code or uninstall. Obviously you want to do an install. So you just click this, go to the one where it says install code in the path. Basically just hit enter and it installs it. Now to actually verify, and you can close out of it if you want. To verify that it actually did it correctly, if you go to cd/user local bin, you'll have this right here. So this is, so you can see that user local bin is actually a very special folder. Visual Studio Code actually puts in the same thing that we did manually. It put in a symbolic link code to where the actual binary is located on disk. So if you, let's say you wanted to edit some code. Let's see. So your touch, A.js, B.js, C.js. So here's some code, and all I have to do is say code dot, and now it can find that editor, and it opens it up, and then here's those files A, B, and C, and I can start editing and typing away, right? And then because so here's a file, and because I now have Node installed, I can run it. So I'm editing code in Visual Studio Code, typing in my JavaScript, and then I'm over here. I'm using Node to actually run it, and install Node modules. So npm install Lodash, for example. So you can see that npm is working, Node is working, Visual Studio Code is working. So that's it. That's all I have for this episode. I'll be having more. I'm going to be doing some functional programming. I already did a functional programming video, but I'm going to be doing some more, and some more Node programming videos. Maybe some on Electron. I'm not sure yet, or React. Anyway, that's it.